Hey guys, Reginald Duck here, back today with another deck profile. So I've got the Weather Painter sort of anti-meta stun deck today. Played it for my last two locals, did really well the first time. Feel I got a little unlucky the second time, but let's get into it. So for the main deck, we've got one copy of the Weather Painter Aurora. This is the one you don't really want to draw, so basically they all have an effect where if they're banished to activate a Weather Painter card effect, then they special summon themselves back in the next standby phase. And then if, for example, well this one, they all have their own unique effects. So this one protects the weather spell and traps from being destroyed, and then also when it is normal summoned, you can place the weather canvas onto your field. So this is the big one that you want to see like one of and summon from deck, but you don't really want to draw it, so one copy. For the best starter in the deck, we've got 3 copies of the Weather Painter Snow. This card is insane. So basically on normal summon it places the weather canvas, which is the spell traps, face up in your spell and trap card zone, and then also has the same effect where it comes back if it's banished for the weather card. 3 copies of the Weather Painter Cloud. With the new field spell, the newish field spell, this card is insanely good. So basically, if the weather card goes to the graveyard, you can target up to 2 canvases in your graveyard and place them in your spell and trap card zone face up. So it just helps you like link climb, because you can actually link using your canvases. So 3 copies, and obviously comes back every time during every standby phase. 3 copies of the Weather Painter Thunder. This card, generally the weather painters, the monsters, just sort of, you use them as fodder for triggering like the better effects of the canvases, but also this one can send for cost a face up continuous spell trap to then place a canvas, so you can out your own skill drain, for example. So really cool, and obviously comes back every time, and it's 17, so that makes this the good one in that sense. And then we've got, so that's it for the Weather Painter monsters. 3 copies of Kashtira Fenrir. I was a bit mixed on this today. The first couple of games I just felt like it wasn't doing anything. Like my mate went off and did like a full what was it? You know, it's not a Brave Engine, I can't think of the new name. But yeah, the Brave Engine combo, and it just so happened that it played perfectly around everything I did, because he just never used a monster effect, and by the time he activated the Griffin Rider in hand, this resolves, and then the Griffin Rider's already on field, so he just negated it and put it back in and destroyed it. But then in my last round against Branded Tailorment, this card was absolutely insane. The guy was doing some sort of weird board where he ended on Invoked Caliga and Masquerade, Rukalos, a couple more things. I just summoned the Fenrir into it, and I can only attack with 1 monster and use 1 monster effect. So I attack the Caliga, and then on attack declaration I banished the Masquerade. So then I just outed 2 problems on his board, and then it was pretty easy from there. Although I did end up drawing with that guy, because I had 12 cards on board. I had literally every single zone occupied, and we went into time. So it was a draw. But literally I had 12 cards to his 2. Oh well, he's a great guy, so I can't complain. 3 copies of Shifter. In the last week's tournament, I drew this card every game. The card is insane, just saw it all the time. First, second, didn't matter. I would always draw it. This time, I didn't see it once. I had it engraved once because it got milled off an Ishizu. That was literally it. So it is insane, but just try to draw it, I guess. That's it for the monsters. 3 copies of the Weather Forecast. This is the best card this deck could have got. You get fan-made cards that are worse than this. So it has 3 effects, all of which absolutely broken. So on activation, you place a canvas from your deck face up in your spell and trap card zone. All your canvases you can only control 1 of, but that doesn't really matter because you only want 1 of them. So just activate, place a canvas, and then its next effect, once per turn, you can have an additional normal summon. So just helps you get a search, and then you just summon what you've searched essentially. And lastly, this is the broken effect. If you're linking for the Weather Painter link monster, you can use your canvases as link material. So if you've got 3 canvases, you don't lose any monsters to link summon. So that's absolutely insane. This card is so good. It's easily searchable, so I'm not playing terraforming, but you could if you really want to like fill out the deck. So 3 copies. 3 of the best canvas, the weather snowy canvas. So this one you can only control 1 of, and then if they all grant the effect to give, say you've got the card here, the canvas, it would be this zone, and this zone you'd be able to use monsters to activate this effect. So you would banish it to search the weather card. So all your canvases give effects to like a T shape, forward, to the left and to the right. So this one, quick effect, banish, search. So you want to make sure you're using your canvases in both players' turns to get as much advantage as possible. And then for the rest of the turn, after you've used this card's effect, you cannot add cards from your deck to your hand except by drawing them. So any prosperities, any Fenrays, you want to do that before you do this. 1 copy of the Weather Painter Rainy Canvas. This one does not have any once per turns on it, so you could use, say you've got a monster here, here and here, you could banish all 3, bounce 3 back row. So it bounces, let me just check if it's set cards, sorry. No, just spell or traps your opponent controls. So you can just return any Floodgates, but that's never really come up because this is the Floodgate deck. Or for example, my opponent negated D-Fisher with Toad, was greedy and stole it for some reason, and then I just returned it to the hand, just had a D-Fisher for free. Last week against Sky Striker, it was pretty brutal. He'd opened pretty poorly, I go first, I've got a rivalry set, and he manages to dig his way into a Hornet Drones, and on summon I just flip rivalry, and then he's obviously like in trouble because he's got loads of Sky Striker spells that he can't now activate. And then I flip up anti-spell and I flip up and I've got this, so he just keeps setting his cards and I just keep returning them to hand, and there's nothing he can do because he can't play spells, he can't summon and he's playing Sky Striker. So I was bouncing 3 cards in his turn, then 3 cards in my turn if there's any left, and then if there was any left over, if I didn't have enough monsters to banish at the start, I could then do it in his standby phase again before he could flip up his ones he'd had set for a turn. So this card is absolutely insane with anti-spell. Rivalry and anti-spell are both in the side deck. 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity. This card just adds so much consistency to the deck. Remember, you do half damage, but I mean, you don't do much damage anyway until you win. Basically, just banish 6 non-random cards you get to choose, and then you get to add one of the top 6 cards to your deck, basically, of your deck to your hand. So if you can't afford these, you could play Piri Rice Map, but it's not even close how much better this card is. So Piri Rice Map, you halve your life points at the start of your main phase 1, and you can search for the Weather Painter Snow, which is the best one. But this card is so much better, it can dig for Floodgates, dig for the field spell, whatever you need. 3 copies of Dimensional Fissure. This card coming back to 3 really gave this deck a boost. So basically, any monster that would go to the graveyard is banished instead. Generally it's better than Macro because you can just play it straight away. So even if you've got like stuff to do, you can just literally go first, play Dimensional Fissure, and then they've got to have the Havness straight away and just be able to chain, and even then they only get 1 chain before this is now on the field. So 3 copies. It came up today that this wasn't Macro, so last week it was totally fine. This week I was going second, the guy had a Time Thief Redoer, and it just meant that he could still fuse because they were not monsters on the field, so they got sent to the graveyard instead of banished. So that's something to watch out for, but really really cool. 2 copies of the Weather Rainbowed Canvas. I've been playing too much Mario Kart. So basically this one, it's a little frustrating because your opponent has to control a monster to be able to activate its effect. So you can banish 1 in the T zone above it, so middle, left or right, to summon from deck a Weather Painter by banishing 1. So basically you want to resolve this and Snowy every turn, because then you're just getting a guy for free from deck because your other one will come back and you're getting a search. So it's really good. You'd want to summon the Aurora a lot of times because it gives protection to your canvases, and then you just sort of want to keep out grinding your opponent with this. This card is insane, and hopefully one day it will get a super or a secret, but I very much doubt it. And I am looking forward to the new Judge map. That looks spicy. 2 copies of the Weather Thundery canvas. If people don't know how to play against this deck, then this card is just the best, because a lot of times they'll go attack and you go Thundery canvas, and they go attack and you go Thundery canvas, and you can just banish their entire board. Sorry, return their entire board to the hand. So at the start of the damage step, you banish your guy, return theirs to the hand. Mirror Jade no longer floats if it's returned to the extra deck, for example, neither would Absolute Zero. It's a really good form of removal because it doesn't target either. So 2 copies. And then for the Floodgates, 3 copies of Skill Drain, because all your guys banish for cost. Skill Drain really doesn't hit you that hard because all your canvases banish your guys. So they would all just resolve off field. For example, you could, if you've already got Skill Drain up, you could normal summon Snow, activate its effect, change the effect of Snowy that it gives to Snow, banish it, resolve it off field. Really cool. Again, first tournament I was seeing all my Floodgates. Second tournament I saw a Skill Drain once, so I was playing basically non-stun Weather Painter because I just didn't see any Floodgates. But that's the nature of the deck. The actual monsters, spells and traps of the Weather Painters don't do that much other than function well under Floodgates. So like you can go second into boards and stuff and try and break them, but like there's no canvas that's an imperm, there's no canvas that like negates or destroys apart from the Rainy, which bounces back row. But 3 copies of Skill Drain, and then because I was never seeing my like in a Floodgate, I have modified it a little bit, so I'm playing just the 1 Macro Cosmos because you are already playing 3 Shifter and 3 D-Fisher. I think Macro is the worst of the 3 because of how slow it is. So if you go second, your opponent gets a lot of chances to do full tear combo before you can actually do anything. So obviously they've got their own turn, then they've got your turn, and then they've even got the chain in their turn when you flip up the Macro. So it's really slow, but I mean you do also want more cards, and you can't play 4 D-Fisher for some reason, not sure why. And then lastly, got 3 copies of Torrential Tribute. This card, again, I literally did not see it today, so I don't think I was playing any traps really. I saw Fenrir and Weather Painters, that was it, and I lost every single die roll as well. So 4 rounds, lost 4 die rolls, but I think last week I went 2-1. It was a 3-round tournament. This week it was 4 rounds and I went 1 win, 1 draw against the branded Tailorman, and I lost against Terry Shizu, and I lost against Adventurer Sprite. That's it, Adventurer, not Brave. But yeah, I literally never saw this today. It is insanely good because you can tag out all your guys, torrential them. The odds are you're going to have Macro, D-Fisher or Shifter, so you just banish your opponent's entire board. And if you don't have any of those cards and they're doing a tier combo, just don't flip it. Or if you think now's the time, you obviously still can if you want, but you're probably going to lose. But I think it's really good. I couldn't think of 3 more slots. I did take this down to 2 briefly, but I've put it back to 3. I think it's insane, and I've stopped playing Piri Rice map because a lot of times it would sit in hand and I'm just not willing to take 4k to search a card. So that's it for the main deck. And onto the extra deck, got 3 copies of the Weather Painter Rainbow. So this is the Link monster of all Link monsters. It's such a boss. This is the card that features on the new playmat, which comes out next year. I think it is 2023. So hopefully I'll be able to pick that up because, I mean, this is one of my favourite decks at the moment. So basically, it's a Link 3, points down, requires 3 the weather monsters, but you can actually use your canvases as monsters with the field spell. So basically, every card it points to, all your Weather Painter monsters, it gives them this effect. You can banish this card when your opponent activates a card or effect, negate and destroy that card. So sort of like your canvases point up in a sense, this points down. So you could It's basically 3 Omni Negates every turn because they just keep coming back as well. Also, you can send this card from face up on the field to the graveyard to negate a special summon. I think it is, yeah. So basically, it does have to go to graveyard, which is a shame, but it can still do it under skill drain because it sends for cost. So if you really need to negate a special summon, you can do. And then it also has the clause where if this card is banished to activate the weather card, it comes back. So if you did have it down here for some reason, you could banish it and resummon it. Really, really good card. 3 copies. And then we play 3 copies of the Weather Painter Moonbow. I summoned it once, but it's just not 3 Omni Negates. I mean, I guess you might need it, but there's literally nothing else to put in the extra deck anyway. So this one, not as good. So 3 the Weather Monsters. If this card is link summoned, you can special summon one of your banished the Weather Monsters. If this link summoned card is destroyed, you can special summon one the Weather Painter Rainbow from your extra deck. The weather effect monsters this card points to gain the following effect. Quick effect, you can banish this card, then target one monster your opponent controls, banish it until the standby phase of the next turn. So it basically turns them all into mini Farfas. It's obviously good, and if it dies it summons the other one, but it doesn't summon the other one as a link summon, so I don't believe you could just... No, actually you would be able to summon it to the extra monster zone, yeah, sorry about that. But it's just not 3 Omni Negates. So I always banish 2 of these off Prosperity, but I mean I could probably just banish other random crap. But yeah, 3 copies. 1 Protector of the Agent's Moon, requires 2 fairies. Basically, the only effect you can use in this deck is tribute a fairy, usually itself because it resolves under skill drain, destroy a card in the field. So if you don't want to get rid of your own skill drain or whatever, tribute this, destroy that card. Generally it doesn't come up, but I mean there's a lot of room in here. So we're playing literally 1 of each of the small Nightmare package. So Phoenix, Unicorn, Cerberus. I don't think I've ever made these. There's just fodder really for banishing off Prosperity, but they're also really useful sort of generally. 1 access code. I nearly made this once, which is another way of saying I didn't make it at all. Let's banish that, we all know what it does. And then we've got a Leviair, never ever came up. Mine is actually misprinted, but I think all the European Generation Force ones are, so it says first edition in red, even though it's a silver stamp. And then we've just got 1 Break Sword. I made it today, but I just used it for attacking over something and then making Zeus, and the guy just happened to have like 3 negates and I had a 4 material Zeus, so I still lost. But so Break Sword, Downward, because it's just an extra material. You could also, if you really wanted to play like Gossip Shadow for example, because then you can end up with even more materials, because that is like 2+ level 3s, but I couldn't find my Gossip Shadow today, so it didn't come up anyway because I only had 4 monsters. But I mean you could feasibly make a Gossip Shadow with more materials, put Downward on, then put Zeus on, but it's negligible. And lastly, 1 copy of Zeus. This card is absolutely insane. Just literally detach to, send everything else, not even once per chain, so you just use it, then negate it, you chain it again. So absolutely broken. This card really does help like with some unwinnable game states, but I also lost to this card a few times today. Like I don't want to say full combo because I didn't have many Floodgates for example, but against Sprite, and he just makes this go in second and then just clears my entire board, and all I had coming back next turn was like our the Painter, and I had our the Painter in hand. So not the fairest card, but I do like it. So that's it for the extra. As for the side deck, this is highly specialised, a lot of these cards, for the local meta, because I thought I knew that someone was going to be playing Dino FTK, because he told me he was going to play it last week. He was watching my combo video because he's the one who showed me about it, thought it died with Hulk, and then learned off me that it's still viable. So I was playing 3 Ash, because if you Ash the Misk in that deck, it is absolutely brutal. I was going to play Hanawata for a laugh, but I figured this is so much better, because it doesn't just stop you getting FTK'd, you can also Ash like Branded Fusion for example, which did come up today. So 3 copies of Ash. You always Ash the Misk, Ash the Baby Ceratosaurus, whatever you want. The odds are he's not going to be able to FTK you. 2 copies of Dark Ruler. I wanted to try and fit more cards in, so I wanted to try and fit the ashes in, so I basically cut down one of a couple of things. Really cool. This deck is alright at going second. Obviously you want to go first with being a Floodgate deck, but like you can, if you get the right number of canvases, you can always like try and interact your way around it, like normal summon, then negate it, you banish it, you search something and all that. So 2 Dark Ruler is still nice, but you can actually go second with this deck. Another Weather Painter guy called Aiden, who's the person who actually got me onto the deck at last season's Nationals, was telling me about blind second Weather Painter today, which I'm probably going to build at some point, let's be honest. 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone, just really good. You can banish like crime, tear, whatever rubbish that you hate facing. Eldritch cards because they're quite cheap, so a lot of like people on the local level will be playing like Eldritch packages because it's one of the most affordable decks. You don't need an extra deck, you don't even need prosperities really, you just need literally Eldritch cards, a couple of skill drains, you're done. 3 copies of Rivalry of Warlords. I used to main deck this, but I think I prefer the Fenrir, especially after that game where I just broke the guy's entire board with a Fenrir. And also I think my opponent misplayed with my Fenrir once, where I summon it, activate the effect as search, and then he banishes it with Mirror Jade. So then I just summon another Fenrir and he loses. But anyway, 3 copies of Rivalry, so this card is insane. I tend to side out the Fenrirs because it's the only non-fairy in the deck, so literally 3 for 3. I can only summon fairies, you can only summon one of one type. Really good, especially against like just random decks as well. So 3 copies of Rivalry, 3 copies of Evenly Matched. With this deck not doing much battling, like generally, you could probably just main 3 of these. My mate talked to me about it today, like in his, I don't want to say bad decks, but I mean like it's not tier Ishizu. So if you are playing a rogue deck, just main 3 evenly, because you're going to lose 50% of die rolls, and then just literally, unless you're me, in which case you lose 100% of die rolls. So you could main this, but I do like to side it. 3 copies. And then lastly, 2 copies of Anti-Spell Fragrance. I should probably bump this up to 3. It was insane every time I saw it. I misplayed with this card, so my opponent, I know it's game 2 because I'll lose game 1 really quickly because I see no Floodgates at all, and I lost the die roll as well, so didn't help. So then game 2, I go first. The only Floodgate I open is this, so I've done like my full Weather Painter combo, not like with the moon, with the rainbow, but like I've got a summon from deck, a return to hand, and I've got a search and an anti-spell, and I flip it up, oh, and a Fenrir as well, sorry. And I flip this card up and in his standby phase, and he had the Lightning Storm in hand, but I didn't know that obviously. So then we're playing out the turn, I'm banishing stuff, I'm removing stuff, and he gets my return summon from deck out, he gets my search out, and he attacks me with something, and he's got rid of my Fenrir as well, and I've got 1 card left on in my monster zone, and so is he. So then I used the Thundery Canvas, return them both to hand, because I'm like, at least then mine will come back next turn. And then he just goes, and he manages to out this during the combo as well, but now controls a monster. And then he just goes, okay, Lightning Storm, because now he doesn't control the monster that I'd bounced, and then it just lost me the game. But you can never really know. Should I have returned his monster to hand? Was I just being greedy? I just wanted to keep my monster alive and it just punished me. Oh well, you can never really know these things. So 2 copies of Anti-Spell. I should probably play 3, but I mean, as you can tell by the mismatched rarities, I could not find my other 2. So that's it for the side deck. So this has been my Weather Painter deck profile. I really like this deck. It's so much fun, especially when like people don't know what they're doing against the deck. And like, this is so unfair, and like the deck has obvious choke points, but if you don't know, you just don't know. So please like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.